Imagine opening a neighborhood lemonade stand. You build a wooden table, buy a bag of lemons, and fill a pitcher with water. But before a single customer walks down the street, you pull out a shiny notebook and write down that you just made $1 million. You run to the bank, show them the notebook, and because they see the $1 million written in ink, they loan you thousands of dollars to build a bigger stand. You use that loan to buy fancy cars, expensive suits, and private jets. No adult would believe a business works like this. But in the late 1990s, this was the strategy used by the seventh largest company in the United States, an energy giant named Enron. Valued at $63 billion, they were called the most innovative company in the world by the smartest financial magazines. They essentially built an entire financial empire without actually selling anything real. Originally, Enron was a traditional utility company that owned giant metal pipes. They pushed natural gas through those pipes from one city to another and charged a small fee for delivery. It was slow and steady. But the executives didn't want to be boring utility managers. They wanted to be Wall Street rock stars who made billions overnight. To do it, they convinced government regulators to let them use a special accounting trick called mark-to-market. Mark-to-market is an accounting method that records the value of an asset based on expected future earnings instead of actual cash received. Normally, you record profit each year as it comes in, but Enron was allowed to guess how much money they might make over 10 years and write that imaginary future money down as cash on hand, stacking it onto a single day. This graph shows a power plant expected to make $50 million over the next decade. Enron immediately claimed $50 million in cash today. This legal time travel allowed them to manifest imaginary money, causing their stock price to explode. Executives took home multi-million-dollar bonuses, while the company quietly bled real cash behind closed doors to fund failing international plants and bombing internet ventures. While Wall Street investors were throwing billions of dollars at the company, a terrifying reality was setting in at headquarters. The imaginary money in their notebooks couldn't pay the electricity bills or the employees. The executives knew that if Wall Street saw their massive debt, the stock price would instantly crash. To hide the unpaid bills, they formulated a plan to move the debt off the books. They created thousands of secret shadow companies. Whenever Enron had massive debt, they sold that garbage to these secret backpacks. By moving debt into the shadows, Enron's reports looked flawless, while the secret companies choked on toxic waste. Hiding the debt made Enron feel invincible, but it didn't solve their basic problem. They were out of real cash. To keep the lights on, they needed to find a way to generate actual money fast. Enron had recently purchased the power grid that supplied electricity to the entire state of California. They realized that when the state was desperate for power, the price of electricity would skyrocket. Traders in air-conditioned offices decided to manufacture a fake emergency. They called power plants in California and ordered them to shut down for fake maintenance. They deliberately turned off the power for millions of people. Traffic lights snapped to black, causing massive car crashes. Hospitals lost power, and elderly people were trapped in sweltering heat waves without air conditioning. While California begged for power, Enron traders were laughing. They agreed to turn the electricity back on, only if the state paid astronomically high prices. In a few months, Enron stole billions of dollars from ordinary citizens. They were treating human lives like numbers in a game, just to generate the real cash they needed to prop up their failing illusion. The illusion finally began to crack when a young journalist noticed something strange in Enron's financial reports. The company claimed to make billions of dollars, but their actual cash in the bank was constantly shrinking. She called the executives at Enron and asked them a basic question. How exactly do you make your money? They became aggressive, insulted her intelligence, and completely refused to answer. When she published an article pointing out the inconsistency, Wall Street finally started waking up. Investors finally began looking closely at the company's books, and panic began to bubble up in the financial markets. The CEO who had built the empire abruptly resigned, claiming he wanted to spend more time with his family. The stock price, which had been flying high in the clouds, began to violently shake. The fragility of the entire $63 billion empire was exposed. It wasn't destroyed by a rival company, but by the simple demand for the basic truth. A brave internal whistleblower finally stepped forward with a secret letter, exposing the massive backpack companies and the elaborate accounting fraud. When government regulators announced a massive investigation, chaos erupted at headquarters. The executives realized they were going to prison. They fired up industrial paper shredders and spent weeks destroying mountains of financial documents to erase history. Their external accounting firm joined in, shredding their own files to cover their tracks. It was useless. Within weeks, the stock price dropped to worthless pennies. The executives walked away with millions, but ordinary employees lost their jobs, their life savings, and their retirement funds. You can hire the smartest people in the world and fool the biggest banks, but if your foundation is built on a lie, gravity will always win. You cannot pay real debts with imaginary numbers.